Have you ever wondered if a small-town engine could rewrite the laws of speed? It's 1963, and against all odds, a modest Indiana automaker is doing the impossible. Beneath the sleek Avanti body lies the real hero, the R2 engine, a supercharged 289 cubic inch V8 roaring with 290 horsepower and 303 pound-feet of torque. Fueled by the genius of Andy Granatelli and his Paxton SN60 supercharger, this powerhouse didn't just move cars, it shattered 29 world speed records in a single day. This isn't just another story about horsepower, it's the tale of a company on the edge of failure, a daring engineer who refused to quit, and an engine that outran the giants of Detroit. So stay tuned, because what you're about to see is how one small-town engine defied fate and rewrote the future of American speed. Let's dive in. The Studebaker 289 V8 didn't start as a performance engine. When it debuted in 1956, it was designed for practicality, smooth, reliable, and efficient transportation for everyday Americans. It wasn't built to set records, it was built to last. The early numbers tell the story. Intake valves measured just 1.656 inches, exhaust 1.531 inches, tiny by performance standards. The camshaft timing was mild. Compression hovered around 10.25 to 1, and in its standard R1 form, the 289 produced about 240 horsepower. Respectable for a family car, but nothing groundbreaking. The original 289 was built to be bulletproof. Reliable, explains automotive historian Robert Casey. It wasn't designed for racing, it was designed to last 100,000 miles when most engines needed rebuilds at 50,000. Everything changed in 1961 when Sherwood Egbert became Studebaker's president. Unlike the cautious leaders before him, Egbert was a bold risk-taker with a background in manufacturing and a passion for innovation. He refused to let Studebaker fade quietly against Detroit's giants. Hit that subscribe button right away and hype if you've loved this video so far. Legend has it that in March 1961, while flying cross-country, Egbert pulled out an airline napkin and sketched his vision for a sleek, futuristic car that could revive Studebaker's fortunes. That rough drawing became the starting point for the legendary Studebaker Avanti. Egbert knew Studebaker couldn't match GM's size or Ford's marketing power, says automotive journalist Pat Foster, but they could stand out through innovation and design. The Avanti was meant to be a halo car, something that put Studebaker back on the map. Egbert turned to Raymond Loewy's world-famous design studio in Palm Springs to bring the concept to life. Working under intense deadlines, less than 40 days, the Loewy team created a body unlike anything else on American roads. No chrome, no grille, just clean, aerodynamic fiberglass lines inspired by the jet age. When the Avanti debuted at the 1962 New York International Auto Show, it left audiences stunned. The low-slung body, aircraft-inspired interior, and safety-first engineering, like a built-in roll bar, made even the Corvette look dated overnight. But Egbert knew that design alone couldn't save Studebaker. The Avanti had to perform as boldly as it looked. That's when Studebaker made its next daring move. In 1962, Studebaker brought in Andy Granatelli to lead its STP division in Paxton Products, the supercharger company Studebaker had acquired back in 1958. Granatelli was more than an engineer. He was a showman and a visionary. Already famous for his exploits at the Indianapolis 500 and in land speed racing, he believed the key to performance wasn't a bigger engine, it was smarter engineering. Andy didn't think like other engineers, recalls former Studebaker technician James Wilson. Where others saw limits, he saw opportunities. He'd look at that 289 block and say, "We don't need more cubic inches, we need more air." Rather than chasing displacement like Detroit's Big Three, Granatelli focused on efficiency, extracting maximum power from every cubic inch through forced induction. No boring, no stroking, just raw, efficient muscle powered by a Paxton supercharger that would soon make automotive history. To understand what made the Avanti R2 special, we need to start with its heart, the Paxton SN60 supercharger. In the early 1960s, this was cutting-edge technology that few understood and even fewer could properly implement. Unlike the Roots-type blowers that hot rodders favored, the Paxton was a centrifugal supercharger, more advanced, more efficient, and far more suitable for a production car. While a Roots blower created a distinctive whine and required a hood scoop, the Paxton worked quietly under the hood, delivering boost without drama. The genius of the SN60 was in its design simplicity, explains mechanical engineer Thomas Reynolds. It used a reciprocating ball drive system that multiplied the engine's rotation, spinning the impeller about 4.4 times faster than the engine speed. That small, high-speed impeller forced air into the cylinders at about 5 pounds of boost, modest by today's standards but revolutionary for a production car in 1963. This increased the oxygen entering the engine by roughly 35%, allowing more fuel to burn and creating significantly more power without stressing the engine beyond its limits. Granatelli's team mounted the SN60 to Studebaker's 289 cubic inch V8, paired with a modified Carter AFB carburetor specifically designed to handle pressurized air. To prevent engine knock under boost, they lowered the compression ratio from 10.25 to 1 to 9.0 to 1, a logical move that actually resulted in more total power. The results were remarkable. The supercharged 289 produced 290 horsepower, up from the standard engine's 240 horsepower and 303 pound-feet of torque. That was the kind of torque usually seen in engines with 100 more cubic inches of displacement. For 1963, those numbers weren't just good, they were revolutionary. Here's where real engineering brilliance shows up. Not just in making a car fast, but in making sure it survives real drivers doing real things. The Avanti R2 wasn't built as a fragile race motor. It was engineered to last 60,000 to even 100,000 miles of normal street driving while still delivering supercharged performance. So everything had to be overbuilt. The R2 started with Studebaker's proven 289 cubic inch cast iron V8 block, a design that had been in use since 1956. But this time it was pushed far beyond its comfort zone. Engineers strengthened the 5 main bearings and packed the bottom end with heavy-duty components so that even at 6,000 RPM, the crankshaft stayed perfectly stable, never threatening to punch through the oil pan. The ignition system also got a serious rethink. Instead of a single breaker point, the R2 used a dual breaker setup to deliver a stronger, more consistent spark under boost. The result? Cleaner combustion, fewer misfires, and a setup that worked with the demands of a supercharged engine rather than fighting them. Then came the heat challenge. Supercharging compresses air, and compressed air gets hot. To keep things cool, Studebaker's engineers expanded the cooling system to hold 17 quarts of coolant, upgraded the radiator, and added a viscous fan clutch that automatically disengaged at higher speeds. That meant less drag when cooling wasn't needed. A clever and forward-thinking touch for the early 1960s. The fuel system was just as specialized. The R2 ran a custom Carter AFB 3507S 4-barrel carburetor designed specifically for forced induction. This wasn't a stock part pulled off the shelf. It was purpose-built to handle the denser air and richer fuel mixture the supercharger demanded. And then there's one of those small but telling details, the oil system. Studebaker used full-flow filtration, meaning every drop of oil was filtered before reaching the engine. Under the added stress and heat of supercharging, that design choice made a huge difference, keeping the R2 running cleaner, cooler, and far more reliable over time. The Bonneville validation that changed everything Studebaker had built this supercharged V8 that looked brilliant on paper. But claiming innovation is one thing, proving it to the world is another. So what did they do? They packed up and headed to the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah, ready to do something that bordered on crazy. It was 1962. Andy Granatelli rolled into Bonneville with 3 Avanti test cars and one outrageous mission: break as many speed records as humanly possible in a single day. Not just 1 or 2. Try 29 records in 12 hours. The cars were powered by the same 289 cubic inch V8 as the production R2. But these weren't showroom cruisers. These were finely tuned machines built to push the Avanti's limits. Once you stripped away the rules of street legality and the worries of long-term durability. Yet at their core, they were still Avantis. Same body, same heart, just unleashed. Granatelli's goal? 170 miles per hour. In 1962, that number wasn't just bold, it was borderline insane. No production car in the world had done it. Not the Corvette, not the Jaguar. The fastest benchmarks hovered in the mid-100s and 50s. But here came Studebaker, a small company from South Bend, Indiana, ready to shatter that ceiling, and then they did. The Avanti clocked an average of 170.81 miles per hour, officially sanctioned and verified over 2 runs. That made the Studebaker Avanti the fastest production car on Earth. For a fleeting but glorious moment, the center of speed wasn't Detroit or Stuttgart, it was South Bend. What stunned everyone wasn't just the number, but how they achieved it. This wasn't some experimental fuel-injected or turbocharged setup. It was still a carbureted, belt-driven, supercharged V8 with a conventional ignition system, just engineered with incredible precision. And those 29 records, they weren't all about top speed. They included acceleration times, endurance runs, and even fuel economy figures. In one daring campaign, Studebaker didn't just build a fast car, they proved they could out-engineer the biggest names in the industry on every front. If the R2 engine was wild, the R3 was downright wild. While the R2 was something customers could actually buy and drive daily, the R3 was Studebaker saying, "Let's show them what we're really capable of." The R3 started with the same 289 block, but was bored out to 304.5 cubic inches. A long-stroke monster that kept a sturdy 5-main bearing cast iron foundation. On paper, it made 335 horsepower. Off the record, insiders whispered it was easily closer to 400. In fact, Andy Granatelli reportedly wouldn't let an R3 leave the shop unless it hit that number on the dyno. Everything about it was turned up to 11. Forged pistons replaced the weaker cast ones. Compression jumped from 9.0 to 1 to 9.5 to 1. The heads breathed through larger ports. The Paxton supercharger spun harder, pushing more boost. And the camshaft, wilder lift, longer duration, pure aggression. For 1963, it even got a transistorized ignition. Cutting-edge tech for its day. Only 9 R3 Avantis were ever built, just 9. In a world of mass-produced muscle, Studebaker handcrafted a few engines that stood as the pinnacle of American forced induction art. These weren't just engines, they were declarations of intent. Then came the R4, a naturally aspirated 304.5-inch version with a sky-high 12-to-1 compression ratio and dual 4-barrel carbs. Good for around 280 horsepower without a blower. It was Studebaker's answer to those who preferred the linear power delivery of naturally aspirated engines. But the real fever dream? The R5. It existed mostly on paper and in prototype form. A 304.5 cubic inch V8 with twin Paxton superchargers, one feeding each cylinder bank, gulping air through dual 4-barrel carbs, and a Bendix fuel injection system. Output? An estimated 575 horsepower. It was experimental and likely never reached production. But the fact that Studebaker even dreamed it up says everything about their mindset. They weren't just building cars. They were chasing the very edge of possibility when no one else dared to. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Studebaker's small independent team managed to outthink and outrun Detroit's biggest players. In the early 1960s, General Motors believed the only way to make real speed was to build bigger engines. The Corvette's 327 cubic inch V8 was the gold standard for American performance. But then came Studebaker with just 289 cubic inches and a supercharger, and suddenly that little South Bend V8 was matching, even beating the Corvette's numbers. Ford's Thunderbird? Sure, it had style, but it was more of a luxury cruiser than a street brawler. Studebaker went the opposite direction. Pure performance wrapped in a sleek, futuristic shell. And here's the amazing fact. Pontiac's legendary GTO didn't even exist yet when the Avanti was making headlines at Bonneville. The GTO wouldn't roll out until 1964 with its brute force 389 cubic inch engine. By then, Studebaker had already proven a smarter path, smaller displacement, forced induction, and engineering finesse, rather than raw size. That was the real breakthrough. Under Andy Granatelli's leadership, Studebaker embraced supercharging not as a distraction, but as the next step in automotive evolution. Granatelli had been preaching the power of forced induction since the 1950s, convinced it could unlock a new balance between performance, efficiency, and emissions. Andy Granatelli might have been the face of the operation, the loud, fearless visionary who believed this humble Studebaker engine could take on the best in the world. But behind him was a small, brilliant crew that made the impossible real. Chief Engineer Gene Hardig was one of them. While the Corvette team at GM had almost unlimited resources, Harding had to make the Avanti shine on a tight 1962 Studebaker budget. The company was already fighting to stay alive, so there was no money for massive redesigns or fancy new tooling. Instead, his team took a modest cast-iron 289 V8, originally built for reliability and fuel economy, and through sheer creativity, turned it into a record-breaking powerhouse. Then came the Paxton supercharger engineers, masters of forced induction, who knew exactly how to make boost behave. They didn't just bolt on a blower and hope for the best. Every ratio, every carburetor jet, and every airflow path was carefully calculated to ensure the engine could deliver smooth, repeatable power without tearing itself apart. And finally, the Studebaker division engineers, the unsung heroes working on the details: cooling, exhaust flow, fuel delivery, and lubrication. They thought like race engineers, but worked with a streetcar budget. Every part had to earn its place. Nothing was wasted. They weren't just building an engine, they were proving a philosophy that innovation doesn't come from big budgets. It comes from big ideas and the courage to chase them. Superchargers weren't exactly new by 1963. Kaiser had tried them. Packard had tried them. Even Studebaker's own Golden Hawk ran a McCulloch supercharger back in the late 50s. So what made the Avanti R2 such a game changer? Timing? That's what. The Avanti hit the market at the perfect cultural moment. America in the early 60s was obsessed with jet-age style and space-age technology. Everything from cars to kitchen appliances looked like it came from the future, and the Avanti fit right in, sleek, daring, and unlike anything else rolling out of Detroit. But this time, the beauty wasn't just skin deep. Under that fiberglass body was a supercharged 289 V8 that turned heads for all the right reasons. It wasn't some fragile hot rod motor. It was built to last. You could drive the R2 to work, park it in the lot, and expect it to start every morning like any other Studebaker. That reliability was what Andy Granatelli and his engineering team were really chasing. The real tragedy of the Avanti R2 is that it showed up at the worst possible time for Studebaker. The company was already struggling financially. The fiberglass body had production issues, and demand, while enthusiastic, wasn't enough to keep the company afloat. Had things been different, had Studebaker been stable, or the Avanti been released a few years earlier, it might have stood shoulder to shoulder with the Corvette today. Instead, Studebaker shut down car production by 1966. The Avanti lived on through independent ventures and private builders. But as a true Studebaker, its life was short. Only about 4,500 Avantis were built from 1962 to 1963, and fewer than 2,000 of those were R2s. But here's the thing about legacy. It's not about how many you sold. It's about what you proved. Here's the what if that haunts gearheads. What if Studebaker hadn't run out of money? What if the Avanti had launched 5 years earlier? What if the fiberglass body hadn't been such a headache to build? We might have seen the R-Series engines evolve further, maybe even turbocharged versions as technology improved. Perhaps an R6 with increased displacement, higher boost, and even greater power. Studebaker might have become the name in forced induction, the way Chevrolet became synonymous with big block muscle. But instead, all we got was 4 short years of production and a legend. The Avanti R2 became a timeline where innovation and precision engineering mattered more than marketing budgets. The Studebaker Avanti R2 engine was where ambition met innovation and proved that brains could beat brute force. This supercharged 289 V8 showed the world you didn't need a massive 427 big block to make serious power. It wasn't just about the 290 horsepower or the speed records, it was about daring to be different. If you love stories of forgotten legends and boundary-pushing machines, hit subscribe and stay tuned. Have a favorite underdog engine or what-if car worth exploring? Drop it in the comments. Every great story starts with a spark.